Good morning, everyone, and welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, know that you are welcome here. My name is Susan Landau, and I'm a relatively new member of QUUF, and our guest speaker, Victoria Poling, uses she, her pronouns. She is a Unitarian Universalist minister, spiritual director, and environmental justice advocate as a board member of Earth Ministry Washington, Interfaith Power and Light. Victoria lives in Kent, Washington, on traditional Muckleshoot territories in the Green River watershed with her partner David and their 4 cats. I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimacum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. Please take a moment to take that knowledge into your heart and send gratitude to these peoples. As we call in our time together, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. It is good to be together. I'd now like to welcome Pat and Doug Rodgers with Helen Lauritzen, who will lead us in our call to community. Hymn number 348, Guide My Feet. Please stand as you are willing and able. Yes.
Go.
Thank you, Pat, Doug, and Helen. Our chalice lighting words today are Bold and Courageous Together by Reverend Erica Hewitt. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. According to poet Mark Nepo, the original use of the word courage meant to stand by one's core, a striking concept that reinforces the belief found in almost all traditions that living from the center is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer.
To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another, to be bold in engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally. Try to give one another the confidence and heart to live as fully as possible.
With full hearts, we affirm our relationships with one another. We recognize our agency and our collective power. We accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous. We light this chalice, symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls. Thank you, Susan. As we settle into the colder days and longer nights and look forward to the return of the light next month, we've come to the time in our fellowship when we light a new candle each Sunday until Christmas Eve. The flame of each new candle reminds us that something is happening now, but something more is still to come. The light of these candles grows brighter and brighter each Sunday, guiding us towards deeper faith, increased hope, shared joy, and more love. I welcome Kestrel and Stella forward to light the first candle, the candle of faith.
We light this first candle for faith, for the choice to gather in community, and the stories that tell us who we are and who we might be, for the wisdom we receive and the insight that breaks in upon us, and for all the things that guide us in living lives that fit our spirit.
Thank you so much for lighting our candle of faith. Our opening words are by past UUA President, Reverend Bill Sinkford. Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We've only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen. Our responsive reading is called A Prayer for Artists and Creatives by Atina O. Danner, who is an unapologetically Black, time-traveling Unitarian Universalist poet-activist who dwells in the past to survive the future. Blessed be the persistent. Blessed be the audacious. Blessed be the humble. Blessed be the curious. Blessed be the community. May we turn toward each other. And I'd like to welcome now Bo Ogren, our Director of Family Ministry, to come forward.
Good morning, everyone. Hi. This morning in RE, we are having our multi-age annual winter shelter cookie making experience. So we have a bunch of KitchenAids set up over there, and we are going to bake cookies, and then we'll take them down to the winter shelter at the American Legion, which runs from November to April, and which we are also hosting as a congregation for 2 weeks this winter to help make food for folks who need it. So for those of you who are on the aisle, if you will stand as you are willing or able and form an arch for our children, we will sing them out to our cookie making experience.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Thank you, Bo. We would now like to acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting this morning. If you are online, you are invited to say hello in the comments section. Tell us your name and where you're from. The chat section can be found on the right side of the video when it is out of full screen, or on the bottom. If you are attending here in person, please rise as you are able or raise your hand so that we may welcome you. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Thank you for coming. We will now receive the offering. This Sunday's collection goes to DBH, Discovery Behavioral Healthcare, who've been serving our community for over 25 years. Discovery Behavioral Healthcare delivers behavioral health and wellness programs to communities throughout the East Jefferson County for children, adolescents, adults, and seniors. DBH also provides a 24-hour crisis line, medication management, counseling, and safe harbor treatment. Please open your hearts and give generously. If you'd like to donate to this worthy cause, you have a few options. The ushers will now come among you and receive offerings from those who are here in person. For those online, text the amount you'd like to give to the number showing at the bottom of your screen. Or go to our website, quuuf.org, and click on the giving link, or simply mail a check to QUUF. When mailing a check, remember to put DBH in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Helen and today's musical guest, cellist Pamela Roberts, play from Adagio of Schubert's Arpeggione Sonata D821. I'd like to share an announcement from our auction committee. Our fund in need to refill our reserves raised over $18,000, and our auction raised $30,000. Thank you to everyone who helped, donated, participated in our auction this year. Everyone made it fun and successful. Thank you so much. And this coming Friday, December 2nd, is our annual holiday craft party. We are so excited to be able to do this once again from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. here at QUUF. We will have crafts galore, and we invite you to join in and sing holiday music, make something beautiful, and join in the fun. It's a finger food potluck, and if you're interested in helping out at any of the craft tables, please contact Bo. We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone, thinking in particular of all of those who have capacity for limiting gun violence and who do not do so. And now within the congregation, we place a stone for the passing of longtime member Jeff Bowman, and we give thanks for his time with us. We place a stone for Noel Crasola, a friend of QUUF since the 1970s, who passed on Thursday, November 24th. Noel was known for long friendships, fascination with poetry, and annotating the books he loved. He is survived by his daughter Esther DeLay, son-in-law Andrew DeLay, and grandson Roger DeLay. A memorial service will be held this Tuesday at 2 p.m. here in the sanctuary. We place a stone for Betty Morey, who passed on November 25th. Betty was Barbara Morey's mother. Barbara, we send you peace. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows we just shared, and also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unspoken but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
Our reading today is by Mark Bellatini, a UU minister, a member of the queer community who served our movement in San Francisco during the AIDS crisis. Here is Mark's prayer. Let the sky above me unroll like a scroll, and let me read upon it today's text from my life. You are alive here and now. Love boldly and always tell the truth. Let the wind arrange the naked branches of the maples and aspens and oaks into letters which proclaim this sacred text. Your heart beats now, not tomorrow or yesterday. Love the gift of your life and do no harm. Let the eyes and hands and faces of all men and women and children and non-binary folks with whom I share this earth be chapter and verse in this great scripture text. Life is struggle and loss and also tenderness and joy. Live all your life, not just part of it. And now let all the poems and scriptures and novels and films and songs and cries and lullabies and prayers and anthems open up before our free hearts. Let them open like a Torah, like a psalm, like a gospel, like an apocalypse, and let them proclaim, do not think you can take away each other's troubles, but try to be with each other in them. Remember that you are a part, not all, great, but by far not the greatest, small, precious, brief breaths in the great whirlwind of creation. And remember that every single human word is finally and divinely cradled in the strong and secure arms of silence. Please enjoy special music by Pamela and Helen, the Sonata in E-flat for cello and piano by Luigi Boccherini. Such a gift of beauty. Thank you. So today we've lit the candle of faith for the first Sunday of Advent. And it feels fitting today for me to be reflecting with you on the call to UU ministry, the call to serve our faith, and how it is a shared call between the candidate and the congregation who calls them. You're beginning to search for a developmental minister, so I want you to know as you go into this how UU ministers prepare for our work. And I hope that you'll appreciate the depth of commitment that we make to this faith tradition and to our congregations. And I also want to say up front that I'm not auditioning today to be your minister. I am in negotiations right now with a couple of small congregations in our area for a ministry that will hopefully start in the new year. In our chalice lighting this morning, Reverend Erica Hewitt offers us a vision of shared ministry. You can turn back to that text in your bulletin if you have one. And for those of you online, I'll read the middle passage again. To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another, to be bold in engaging the world around us as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and heart to live as fully as possible. These are beautiful words, and they really land with me, because what calls me into ministry again and again is encouragement to share the work. I didn't answer a call to do this alone. I answered a call from you. You are the ones who taught me that we do ministry together, and that this is a place where many people share the authority to minister to one another. You ministered to me by calling me into leadership in our faith tradition 6 years ago when I was a board member here at QUUF. Something extraordinary happened in my ordinary small town life. I was right here in the pulpit giving board announcements one Sunday, and afterwards someone walked up to me without any preamble or greeting and said point blank, "Have you ever considered becoming a UU minister?" No, I hadn't. But when more people started to ask me that question, I started to consider it. You saw something in me that I had not seen in myself. We need each other for this kind of encouragement. So from the start, my call was not mine alone, it was yours. You gave me confidence and heart. And as I answered this call, you were part of the process all along the way. Your board president signed my official sponsorship form as an aspirant. I received a recommendation from our minister emeritus. You responded with hometown pride, sending one of your own into the ministry, and you even raised funds for me, about 10% of my tuition, and you celebrated my acceptance to Seattle University's School of Divinity so I could earn my Master of Divinity. This was a big deal to me. You have no idea how important your support was and how it would see me through times of theological struggle, vocational doubt, and personal hardship, as well as the events that have happened in our world in the last 6 years. And whether you knew it or not, you were acting straight from the heart of our tradition. UU clergy have historically been called from within the congregations. A UU minister can only claim a UU identity as a member of a UU congregation. Our movement is an association of congregations. There's no other religious body where a person can be formed as a Unitarian Universalist. So that means that the privilege and the authority of ordaining a person into ministry also belongs exclusively to our congregations. We're not ordained by bishops or by masters of a lineage, by UUA staff, or by other ministers. This is part of what it means to have congregational polity. To become a UU minister I needed your encouragement to be bold, to engage what scared me internally, which at first was the very long formation process and its requirements. I needed the promise that I made to you that I would do this to stay the course. Compared to other religious leaders, we have one of the most arduous and longest set of tasks to complete, which, by the way, does prevent some very skilled and qualified people from entering our ministry. So I'm going to tell you the steps. It's long. Fasten your seatbelts. All right, so first we earn a Master of Divinity degree, which, like a PhD, is a terminal degree. There are 2 remaining UU seminaries, and most training for UU ministry is through Christian seminaries, although the approved list of Jewish, Buddhist, pagan, and interfaith programs and more is growing. Many M.Div programs cost upwards of $75,000 in tuition. We require our ministers to go through a career assessment, which involves multiple psychological profiles, none of which were designed to assess fitness for ministry. They're a way of covering liability in case of misconduct. One of them was, in fact, designed for department store managers to make sure that they would be loyal to their companies in the 1940s. No joke. Then there are internships. 2 are required. I ended up doing 4 unexpectedly. The first is called Clinical Pastoral Education, which is a deep dive into crisis ministry, typically in a hospital or prison setting. This 3 to 6 month internship is without pay, and meeting people in pain, trauma, and approaching death pushes us to our limits and brings our embedded beliefs about how the world is and how it ought to be to the surface. It flushes out our best and our worst coping skills so that we can learn to love better. The second 1 to 2 year internship is really a residency, and that happens in a UU congregation. We have hosted many interns here before. Or also in a community ministry setting, and I'm so grateful for my internship where I served as an interreligious ministerial intern in an ELCA Lutheran congregation where I was their director of community engagement. During this time, UU congregations typically pay interns less than a living wage, and I was fortunate to be well supported. There's a hurdle. Then there's a reading list of nearly 150 books that are not included on the graduate school curriculum. I fit this reading in on my own time when not studying, sitting with people in crisis, working part-time, and maintaining my own mental and spiritual health while maxing out support from friends and family. It is not uncommon for seminarians to lose marriages and relationships during this turbulent experience that eclipses all areas of our lives. I, too, lost some relationships and some life dreams. During this process, ministerial candidates support ourselves through bonding together with other candidates and seeking out mentorship, paying for therapy and spiritual direction, which are usually necessary because this journey involves dismantling our worldview and what we hold sacred, a process that is profoundly destabilizing. One minister compared it to spilling your guts, letting other people poke around them, and then putting them back together. I know that's kind of a visceral image, right? Fortunately, the UUMA, the Ministerial Association, has stepped in to create a formation network for aspiring ministers, so we now have mentors and discernment groups for collegial support and learning. This fills a gap where our covenantal theology to do this work together ought to be in the formation process. So as you can hear, it's a lot. UU ministerial candidates spend years studying and preparing our hearts and minds, our bodies and our spirits for this work. We learn how to build community, build our support networks, and ask for help in the process. Lots and lots of help on the fly as we go. And as it turns out, this is exactly the preparation that we need for today's ministry in ambiguous times. There's no one path. We can't be ministers alone. We need each other. So many people have supported me along the way of facing my own struggles and suffering so that I can be a presence of healing, of integration and wholeness, and hope for others. There are still more steps I didn't mention. Last December, I went before the Ministerial Fellowshipping Committee, which is a big panel interview. And that's a time when our peers and professional colleagues in ministry get to listen to us to discern whether we're ready. It was scary. I wasn't sure whether my peers would be willing and able to accept me into service alongside them in ministry. And this was a moment when what mattered was not that I checked off all the lists of requirements, but whether I'd formed an identity as a UU minister. Seeing that committee is the closest ritual that UUs have to a test of faith. Now, there's no step-by-step checklist for arriving at faith. This journey is particular to every individual. And this is where my story gets long and a little bit loopy, and I tried to keep it short, and so I'm sorry. Those of you watching online, you can get a cup of tea or coffee. I won't be offended. And if I see you all here squirming, I'll try to be a little more succinct. Today we've hung the banner of faith. And lately I've been relying on a description of faith by Reverend Jackie Clement. Faith is a deeply seated confidence, vital to our very existence. A deeply seated confidence, vital to our very existence. Whereas belief is only what we think is true, though we wouldn't stake our lives on it. Faith leaves room for mystery. Belief does not. I had a problem going into ministry because faith was a mystery to me. My doubt was so strong. Not only my doubts, but the doubts that I heard from other people as I heard congregants complain about ministers. I wasn't hearing encouragement every step of the way, that's for sure. So I had to face a hard question. Do I have faith in this profession? Do I have faith in this profession? Outside of a UU congregation, in a secular place like the Pacific Northwest, and in a time when religious affiliation in moderate and liberal traditions is steadily decreasing throughout the country across the board, it wasn't clear to me what value and relevance a UU minister has in our time. So the parallel journey I had along with all of those requirements was that I needed to discover for myself what is the value of being a UU minister. Why do I need to be one, and why do you need one? And this led me to some surprising discoveries, one of which was that I was misplacing my faith onto our healthcare system. I want to share the story because I think it's a common one in our time. Many people look to the healthcare system for salvation, to save the body through surgery, emergency medical response, medication. We look to the mental health care providers in our lives to save our spirit and soul through the latest techniques that they have available to work with us and through their presence. Halfway through seminary, even I was engaging my healthcare providers in meaning making, looking to a doctor to treat my spiritual pain, which I felt in my body, and seeing a therapist for keys to my spirit and soul, tending to the mystery in my dreams, which is one of the few places I could see mystery at work. I am so deeply grateful for the patience and the wisdom and skill of the healers I consulted. And it turns out that every single one of them had a robust faith and a spiritual practice that enabled them to do their work. So I had to face my own spiritual problem. And what I discovered is that part of my pain was that I wasn't in covenant any longer. Covenant is important to us as a faith tradition. I mean, I was still a member here at QUF. I was making my small pledge, and I was meeting with UU ministers in a cluster group every month. But I'd stopped attending a congregation. I wasn't coming to worship. I hadn't found a place I wanted to be in Seattle. Remember what we heard about shared ministry earlier? That our shared work is to give each other confidence and heart, to live as fully as possible? Well, I wasn't receiving that confidence because I wasn't showing up in a congregation. I was trying to substitute seminary for church. It seemed reasonable enough because I could look to my classmates for encouragement, and I was learning from ministers of other traditions, but I wasn't in a position where UU ministers could have much influence on me. I was really missing out on the companionship of these remarkable religious professionals. So I wasn't aware of how UU ministers are trained to point the spiritual seeker and sufferer, in this case, me, towards that which would give healing and wholeness. point me to that sense of reverence, respect, wonder, and awe in my daily, ordinary, waking life. I needed that alongside the reminder to be accountable for living my values of multicultural and multi-faith covenanted relationship. Honestly, I didn't know that I needed a UU minister to lead and to guide me in facing my very common and very recognizable forms of spiritual suffering. Someone who could encourage me to find the practices that would help me stay with the heart of my internal conflict. Instead, I was looking for someone to fix my problems, decrease my suffering, and take away my pain. My embedded theology, my belief about how the world works, is that this is what our healthcare system is for. Does this sound familiar to you? I'm sure it does, because my behavior is not unique at all. It's part of a systemic issue in Unitarian Universalism. UU ministers are routinely not given the influence or the spiritual authority to handle spiritual problems. Common things like righteousness, unforgiveness, zeal, blame, and resentment. At the same time, UU ministers are given all of the responsibility for what happens in a congregation under our watch. So I was asking myself, well then, how does one do this? How do I do this? Honestly, how do I become a UU minister? And I found my way back in through my clinical pastoral education, which I did in hospice chaplaincy. Talking about hospice is hard, I know. Everyone here in this room, I'm sure, has lost loved ones. And I want to say at this moment that in loving people who were dying and in talking with their family and friends, I learned a way of ministry called a ministry of presence. It means being there. Being there for people who need to listen, to be attentive to where the Spirit is moving as communicated in the body-mind's symptoms. This is one of the hardest things, I think, to do as a congregational minister because days are so tightly scheduled and the demands of administration are high. It's really hard to be there and listen. So I found that the point for me of being a UU minister in our times in this day is knowing where to listen, within and beyond the embedded narratives, within and beyond the complaints, within and beyond the beliefs of tradition, culture, and habit, and invite folks to dig deeper to where there is life-giving faith, joy, relief, courage, and peace. I was seeking that deeply seated confidence and heart to live as fully as possible, and to trust that there is a life energy there that is available to us at every moment to learn up until our death. And after that, I don't know. This invitation to trust life energy and live fully was important to me because I learned in clinical pastoral education that spiritual pain is resistant to opioids. It's difficult for the body to tell the difference between physical and psychospiritual and emotional pain. There's no drug for spiritual pain. There's no drug for hopelessness or meaninglessness or relationships broken beyond repair, an inability to forgive self and others. These are spiritual pains, and that's why we need ministers. We are healers of the spirit. Paradoxically, by not being able to do anything, by being there, just being there, I was able to hear people. I was able to hear those places where someone's voice would lift, where there's a little smile, there was a little leaning forward, where some opening was happening, some joy, some possibility of hope and meaning that could be made. I'm talking about spirit that lives in the body and in relationships, a vitality, a life essence that looks like animated joy and curiosity and receptivity. I'm talking about a life energy that is comfortable with silence. I'm talking about a spirit that's willing to step off of a righteous position to take a deep breath and ask where there is reason for gratitude and hope. Another word for this might be the willingness to give and receive love. So here is the long way around to say that as a UU minister, I know my value, and that is that I choose to love Unitarian Universalists and UU congregations. And while I have no pills for gratitude, I can point to the larger whole of which we are a part. And I can reflect back what I notice that is giving life to another person, and to a group of people, and to an entire congregation. To be a UU minister is to encourage the life and the spirit of the whole congregation by moving into and through spiritual pain and difficulty, to find that depth of life-giving love for yourselves. So here I am, I've made my confession that I had to learn the hard way of breaking and renewing my promise, of being out of covenant and finding my way back in, and that healing myself meant that I needed more UU ministers, more UU congregations, and to honor that call that I heard from you to become a UU minister myself. It meant placing my faith in the spirit of life and willingness to love as I experience it through my covenant with other UUs who practice with me and share the work and share the encouragement. This is what religious liberation looked like for me. I see you squirming in your seats. So what's next? Having been welcomed into preliminary fellowship, my next step is to come before a congregation to ask to be ordained. So I'm here today with an invitation for you to consider. Would you be willing and able to ordain me into ministry? Thank you, I wasn't expecting that. If you ordain me, it does mean that you'll be sending me out into the wider community of Unitarian Universalism to serve other congregations. In a sense, you'd be giving me as a gift to our faith, the first minister to ever be called out of Quimper UU Fellowship. Practically speaking, what does it involve? Well, you know, it involves a board vote and a committee to plan a service and some funding for a party. And we'll hold a ceremony. Isn't that how everything goes in a church? Ordination is a once-in-a-lifetime event for a minister and a rare event for a congregation. And for you, it would be the first time that you ordain a minister. It would be an opportunity to affirm your faith and your deep commitment to our living and growing tradition that makes mistakes and works to repair them. And it would be an offer of a pledge to support me as I answer this call with the yes of my life. It would be a great honor for us both. I'll be writing a proposal to your board to consider this. And with that, I'm stepping out of your pulpit for the time being. Unless something unexpected comes up, I won't be guest preaching for the remainder of the church year. And I just want you to know that I am profoundly grateful for the ways in which you have formed me as a minister, that you have showed up. And I hope that your journey with me has been formative as well. As you go forward, I offer you my blessing and the hope that you will continually turn toward your mission in the world. May the spirit of love be with you and your ministry of life at QUUF and beyond. Please join me in lifting your voices to sing hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine. Thank you to our song. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Next week, Joseph Bednarek will be speaking on the topic of responsibility. We hope you can join us. For our postlude today, Pamela and Helen will play an arrangement of pure imagination from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Here, I invite you to stay seated.